Welcome to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece Calbanero, and I'll be sharing stories of miracles, God moments, and unpacking the truth behind what joy truly means. My friend, when God gives you a direct call on your life, be sure to answer it. Here's to answering my call together. Hello, and welcome back to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece. I'm so grateful that you are here today. Friends, if this is your first time plugging into That's Joy, hello. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for clicking play on today's episode. I always say there are so many podcasts out there that you can choose from, but I believe that you are at this moment, at this place, for a reason. And so I know that the guest on today's show is just going to bring so much value to your world, whether you're single, married, or in a relationship. I promise you that if you make it to the end of this episode, you're going to find so much value, no matter where you're at. Friends, if you're new around here, you might not know, we still kick off every episode with a little joyful noise. Joyful noise is our version of good news. What are the good things that are happening? How do we highlight more of that? Well, today's joyful noise is the fact that November is here. Jonathan and I talked about sweet traditions that we want to start since we are newly married, and one of those is decorating on November 1st. So you best believe we are those people proudly shouting it from the rooftops, or better yet, not shouting it from the rooftops, probably just playing Michael Bublé's album on repeat from the rooftops. And so that's what we will be doing, and I can't wait for that moment. Let's be real. By the time you're actually listening to this episode, the tree's probably already up, okay? I had the joy of recording this a bit sooner with my friends, Casey and Megan, and you guys, they are brilliant. They are hilarious. They are filled with so much wisdom and life experience. And they are authors and speakers and coaches, and they put on conferences, and they're going to write even more books, and we're going to talk about it at the very end. But I'm telling you, no matter where you're at, I know you're going to fall in love with them as people too. This was my first time meeting them on this interview, and I quickly became fast friends with them at the very end, just because they are so easy to talk to. So I hope that you grab your notebooks, take all the notes. I know that there are many different parts of our conversation where I was like, man, I want to remember this, but then also get ready to laugh with us because they are just characters. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive in. I know y'all are going to love them, and I can't wait to introduce you to my new friends, Casey and Megan. Today, we have very special guests who are joining us on That's Joy. And you know what I love about this? Honestly, just what I love about life is that I don't know these friends quite yet. We met through a mutual friend who was actually a guest on our show as well. His name is Bob Wheatley, and he does incredible work with brand builders and just as an author, as a speaker, all the things. And he is our mutual contact. And so I love this so much because all of the guests that we've had on That's Joy has been through that form. Like there's nobody on the show that I haven't had a personal connection with to some degree or hasn't been a friend of a friend. And I think that that's so special in a season where we are at as a community. And so friends, I am so excited to bring to you a Marriage365. Casey and Megan are here, and I want them to share a little joyful noise. Now, if you're new around here and this is your first time listening to That's Joy, joyful noise is just our version of good news. It's the good things that are happening in the world, and it's our form of highlighting more of that. But they might have a little twist on this. So, you guys, welcome to That's Joy.
Hey, thanks so much, Cece, for having us.
So excited to be here.
And when we heard about this joyful noise, I was like, are we going to make like some sort of yip, 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 yip?
Yeah. Hey, we're all for that. We're both loud and
We are.
yes. Well, I know I don't want to speak for both of us, but at the same time, no, that happens in marriage. We often speak for each other. A couple weeks ago, we were privileged to go to a marriage retreat. Now, we normally host them, we pour into people, but this was one where we got to go and receive, and it was actually through the owners of Chick-fil-A.
No
And they have,
way.
yes, and they have a huge passion and
Mhm.
nonprofit for marriage and family. I think most people, I don't think that go to Chick-fil-A actually know that. And it's this amazing location, resort retreat center in Georgia. And we live in California. So we got to fly across the country and just
So
be
fun.
poured into. And we needed it. And
I love
it
that.
brought us so
Yeah,
much joy, Cece.
it brought us.
Oh my gosh. I love
It was
that so
refreshing.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you guys are from California, but I'm born and raised San Francisco Bay Area. Where are
Oh
you
my
at?
gosh. Okay. Well, we're Southern California. We're in Orange
Okay.
County. Yep.
Okay, sweet. Dang, we could have done this in person. I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Small world.
Literally.
How fun.
I know. So, anyhow, I love that you guys are here and thank you so much for sharing that joyful noise too. Friends who are listening, if you don't already know, their brand is called Marriage365. So, we're going to be diving into relationships, marriage, even touching on singleness because just you got to
Yeah.
be single before you're married.
Yep.
We're going to be touching on it all, and so I am thrilled to have you both here. For our friends who may not be following your hilarious and so informative platforms, will you just give us a dose of who y'all are? And more importantly, when and how did you find God?
Mm, wow, that's a good question. I think
Yeah.
I'll start with our story. We met and fell in love in college, and dating was super fun. It was very playful, and there's just a lot of great experiences. What we didn't know was all of the unprocessed childhood wounds and the things that we kind of had ignored growing up were actually some of the things that brought us together. But once we got married and we're kind of forced to live with each other, it just all came out, and
Yeah.
it
Mm.
quickly unraveled. And like, I never saw myself as an angry person, but I was angry with Megan, and I was so confused. There was screaming matches. There was a lot of frustration, resentment, and no tools on how to actually get us back on track. So it was just general frustration over each other.
Yeah. And then, we were able to turn our marriage around. That's a long story in and of itself. But
Yeah.
when we were doing that, we recognized if you can't afford therapy and your church doesn't have a marriage ministry or doesn't have someone who can sit with you and is trained, you're kind of out of luck. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of marriage resources. Now, again, we've been married 21 years. So this was a very long time ago. This was really even before social media was around, okay? Not
Yeah.
to date us, but that there wasn't a lot of
A
information.
long, long, long time
The
ago.
long story short, we really created resources that we knew we needed for our own marriage. And as we started creating our own resources and overcoming these obstacles in our relationship, our friends and family were like, you need to spread this to the world. Like,
Mhm,
these are
mhm,
going to change
Wow.
marriages.
mm.
And of course, we specifically heard God's calling on our life. I mean, there have been a few times in my life where I have audibly heard God's voice. And one of them was, you and Casey are going to be the voice of marriage for the next generation.
And Megan and
Come
I,
on.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, just bring it. And I was like,
that
okay,
was a
wow.
powerful moment.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, I knew
that's
it.
a
It wasn't, and
powerful one.
yeah.
But when Megan shared that with me, I had one of those moments like Abraham and Sarah, where Sarah laughs because it's so
Yeah.
incredulous. Like, come on, we're so bad at marriage. Like, all the fights are still like echoing back in my head of like what we said to each other, what we've done to each other,
Yeah.
the anger. Like, it wasn't like all of a sudden it just erased the memory of that. So I was like, who's gonna pay attention to the people that really fouled it up? And I think that there's a lot of humor in the heavenly realm that we overlook, that God has a sense of humor. He's like, I'm going to take the couple that like just absolutely floundered, couldn't get their act together, have so much going against them, and that's the couple
Yeah.
I'm going to pick
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Yeah.
to bring hope, to bring this
Restoration and healing.
yeah, to the world. Not
Yeah.
and again, like scripture says, it's God uses the foolish to confound the wise. And
Yeah.
you know, I guess that's our calling, is to remind people how foolish we were in our marriage.
And it's okay that you're messy because God uses our mess,
Yeah.
and I think that's
100%.
been a really good reminder, even for us, that we tell every couple we work with, no couple has arrived. There's no
Mm.
perfect couple, right? I mean, you're
Right.
married, you know this.
Right. Yeah.
We never arrive fully. It's this ongoing learning process. And
Yeah.
yeah.
But to get your question, like Megan and I both were raised in Christian homes. Like I gave
Mhm.
my life to a Billy Graham crusade when I was 6 or 7.
Oh,
And,
that's awesome.
we were raised in the church. I think we had very different church experiences. So I think even like walking into marriage and thinking about marriage, we're like, yeah, we'll just put Jesus at the center of the marriage. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Mm.
Or like
Yeah.
some platitudes. Like I remember praying, Jesus, would you just change Megan's heart? Because she's really like, she doesn't get me.
He thought I was the problem. So
Yeah.
he prayed that
I
I would
prayed for
change.
Megan.
And I was
Oh
praying that
my
he would
gosh.
change.
Of
Yeah.
And God was like,
course.
yeah, God's like, hey, maybe Megan, you need to change. And
Yes.
yeah.
He's like, turn that mirror around, sis. Turn
Yeah.
that mirror around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a plank in my eye. Actually, I probably had like 45
I'm
planks in
sure
my
at
eye.
some point
Yeah.
I gifted her the power of a praying wife. Like, you're just not praying
Oh my
hard
gosh,
enough.
Cece, for
Oh
Christmas,
my
he
gosh.
gave me that book, but it was like
Mm.
not a time we were doing well.
Stop.
And I'm
Stop.
like, what are you telling me that like I need to pray more? He's like, yeah, I think you do.
It's called weaponizing our faith.
That
Anyway,
is hilarious. I
I just
love
wanted to
that.
share really quickly about how I came to
Yeah.
Christ because it was pretty cool. My parents, unfortunately, they divorced. We both come from divorced homes, but
Okay.
they divorced when I was in 6th grade, which is a really bad age. I mean, not that there's
Yeah.
a better age, I guess, but I was like right in that midst of going through puberty. And every year with my youth group, we would go to Camp Sugar Pine in Northern California. And I loved it. And it was like I have like some of those like core memories growing up. And I
Yeah.
remember that it was that summer that where their divorce was official. And I remember giving my life to Christ and going, and it was more of a like a, I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to
Mm.
just trust you. It wasn't more so of like, I know I need this. Like it was like out of desperation,
Mhm.
out of pain, out
Yeah.
of like trauma, honestly. And I
Yeah.
didn't even think I really knew what I was doing because I was in 6th grade and I was very emotional at the time. But my life definitely changed after that. And I'm so grateful for shout out to Camp Sugar Pine. I don't even know if they still exist,
Oh.
but it was amazing. So
That is so awesome. Your guys' story is so beautiful. And honestly, as you were sharing about how you've landed here, it reminded me so much of that scripture that you briefly shared. But God resists the proud and exalts the humble. And I think there's such a beauty in your humility and how much you're able to say, I don't. You know what? Like, it's almost that's why you lean into humor so much. But honestly, I feel like it makes you so much more real because the
thank you.
thing that I see the moment that I go to your guys' Instagram, which by the way, y'all, if you're not following them on Instagram yet, single, married, in a relationship, you got to follow them because their content is gold and it's hilarious. But you guys have such a way of communicating that I really think the Lord's doing something where you're just set apart. Because I feel like so often with marriage conferences or advice or things like that, honestly, it's just kind of boring. Like, it's like, we're
Yep.
going here because this is our last resort. This is like a I don't know, like, it's just sad and
Yeah.
not light at all. And so I think that your approach and just how God has wired the both of you has
Mhm.
made this experience be that much better. So I'm excited to dive in a bit more. And Megan, honestly, really resonate with your story because my parents divorced as well when I was in the 8th grade.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
I
Same
know.
age,
So
that same
Ugh.
age, that it's that formative
exactly.
junior high age.
Did you go
Yeah.
through
Yikes.
puberty?
Middle school
Yeah.
is rough because
Rough.
you
Yeah.
don't know who you are, you know?
And then to
So,
have your home life be chaotic and change and the back and forth. I'm so sorry. Yeah,
yeah,
it's hard. It's brutal.
Can
same.
I actually address some of the singles that are listening to this
Please.
podcast before we lose them too quickly? That I gotta just talk about marriage.
Please do.
When I look at how bad Megan I are, like how we were when we grew together and this journeyed towards from dating to getting married. Um, I wish I could have stepped back 2 years earlier in my life and said, Casey, if you're ready to step into this new season of life, which you want, how are you preparing yourself
Mm,
for your mate?
Come
How are
on.
you working through your insecurities?
yeah.
How are you working through some of the wounds that you had? So little different than Megan. My mom's been married 6 times. I've never known my parents together. And I got chaos that I completely avoided. Didn't do any work on.
And he normalized. Like he thought 6 marriages was normal.
Yeah,
and I was like, hey, babe,
Wow.
That's my
FYI,
norm.
that's not normal. Yeah.
And if
Wow.
you are single and longing for that sense, like, I want to be ready for that person, like, wouldn't you also want that person to be working on themselves? And a lot of
100%.
things that I've discovered in marriage was I was blaming like Megan's the problem. But I think marriage's best, tool and crucible is that it reveals all of your faults and your shortcomings and reminds you, like, you have to work on yourself. I can't work on Megan. Megan works on Megan.
Yeah.
I can work on myself. And I wish I would have done that sooner. So just even if you're thinking about like moving in towards the season of finding someone and moving towards marriage, that's what you long for. It's a godly impulse. This is the time. This is the time to become the healthiest version of yourself, and you will avoid so much pain, frustration, like learning how to be in a relationship while you're single. Maybe the best time to work on it. So,
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that, because one of my best friends was like, well, you asked them. My question is, what is the best piece of advice for singles? And boom, you got it from the gate.
oh, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is such good advice. So I could not agree more. You guys have built a following online that is quite literally reaching millions. I mean, you've had so many viral videos and you have over 500,000 on Instagram, and the list can go on with how much impact you are making online. Sometimes when you hear those numbers, are you like, oh shoot, wait, for real? That's us.
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
shocking.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's so wild. I love it so much, but I think that God has allowed you to reach new territories and to expand and reach all of his sons and daughters, just like you were given that word from the gate before this all began. I think that you're living in it. And there's such a beautiful thing about hearing from people who have done the work and are now equipping the next generation. So I'm just so curious to know, and I know majority of our audience are single girlies. Let's just be real. That's who we're talking to right now. But I know they're going to put this episode in their pocket, and it's going to be one that they re-listen to. So as we share just doses of wisdom with them, I know that one for me is like, man, what's the difference between males and females and how we're wired? Like, there is such
Watch
a
out.
difference. I mean, right.
It's,
And
it's 2024.
I know. Oh yeah, whatever. We'll say it. We'll say it.
Yep. Let's do it. Let's be
I love it.
radical. Yeah.
We'll be bold.
There are
But
differences.
truthfully, man, I think that, I mean, Jonathan and I are babies, like infants in marriage. We got married last December, so we're not even on 1 year yet. But there's something that has been so apparent in the last year. It's like, man, we're wired so differently. Like the ways that his brain goes is so different from the way my brain goes. And that leads to our miscommunication points. And it isn't anything crazy, but it's as much as like, oh, I didn't think I had to say anything because I didn't need to say anything more. And I'm like, no, but will you talk more? Like just like little things like that. So I'm so curious to know, as professionals, like, how would you lay that out? Like, how do we talk about the differences?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say that we believe that God's intention was to make us very different.
Yeah.
Because
Joke's on you.
I know, right?
Right?
And I think that there's a lot of reasons behind that.
There's divine humor.
But we always say, you've heard that term, of course, opposites attract.
For sure.
So I think half of the time it's that you're attracted to someone different than you. Okay.
It's kind of the mystery of them.
Yeah,
You're
like,
different.
You're
There's a
different. You
mystery
bring
to it.
that out in me, right?
Yeah.
Or like they push me to do this, and I would never normally do that. And then the other half of it is, yes, it's how men are wired versus female. So let me give you like an example with love languages. Most of the time, the top 2 love languages of men are words and physical touch. Now, that's not to say that there's exceptions, and there's not to say that you're, if you're a dude listening and you're like, that's not me, like something's wrong with me. Absolutely not. But the majority, like I'm talking the majority. As with women, our love languages they dabble in all 5. of the love languages.
They
right?
do. We need it
They
all.
do. We do. And there's these, I mean, we've posted on Marriage365. It's like, I'm kind of all the love languages. I want all of
So
those,
real.
right? Yeah. But like
So
even
real.
that alone is something where you look at. And then I think about something like men are very simple creatures. You give them food, you give them respect, you give them love, you give them sex.
Whoa.
They're pretty happy.
Yeah.
Like they don't really require that much. And I will tell
I
you,
can agree with that.
having
Yep.
a daughter and
Yeah.
a son, you
True.
give our son a stick and some food, and like he's happy. Like he'll make a gun out of a stick or a sword out of a stick, and he just needs food and he needs good sleep. And so I think like as we're women, we are more complicated. We have typically we're more emotional. Doesn't mean that men aren't emotional, but we are more emotional. We think about things men don't. We have a heavier mental load, right? Even just our bodies, like our genitalia is so much more complicated than men's. Like how
So
God
true.
created us as humans, we're so different.
Yeah, and you know there is forces of darkness that are trying to erase the differences between a male and a female. Like absolutely. Let's just
Yep.
call it out. The
Yep.
forces of darkness are trying to erase that. And there are two very distinctive, beautiful, like a masculine energy and feminine energy that I recognize when we're working with couples. Like it comes out. Like there's something beautiful about a masculine, like I want to protect my family, even through violence, if I must protect those that I care about. And that's tough to step into the line of danger, to step into the line where there could be physical harm. But that's the courage of a man, right? There's women don't go to watch 300 or Gladiator or Braveheart. That's guys.
No.
Guys are watching that like,
Yeah.
that's a man's man. Like,
Well-
oh yeah, let's protecting his family.
Yeah.
And that kind of masculine energy, the way I've really defined it in modern marriage is like men are initiators.
Yeah.
Like there's something beautiful about a man that walks up to a woman. We could consider it like the classic love story where he's picking up on her or whatnot, but that a man is taking the initiation, like, hey, you're beautiful. Like, would you like to dance, or can I take you out? When it's the other way around, instinctively, we're kind of like, that's kind of a little weird. That's kind of strange.
And every woman wants to be pursued by the guy.
100%.
The man is the one that proposes, not the woman.
Yes.
Right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
like,
We would all kind of bristle at like
what is she?
Wait, why is she doing that? And then we would actually look at the guy and go, what's wrong with that guy? What's wrong with that guy? Where he doesn't step up to the plate. But women have this soft, nurturing, like this beauty, this feminine energy is so beautiful. It's safety. It's cuddling,
Well, it's nurturing, right?
It
I
is.
mean, we are more, not to say that men can't be nurturing, but realistically, we are more nurturing. That's why we
I'm
are
more like-
pregnant. That's why we have the babies. Like that's
I'm more like tackle the kids, toss them off, throw them in the stand. Megan wouldn't do that. That's me. But here's what's interesting in relationships that we've noticed is that men are initiators. And when a man takes the lead, and leadership is not, this is what we're doing. This is what, tell it, let's like build a plan together. And I'm going to help us direct us that and guide us that way. Women respond to that. And I want to say there's this beautiful picture in the Jewish, like in the Hebrew picture, like describing what a man is and a woman is. And I don't want to go too much in the detail, but it was this idea that man is like a fire and woman is reflection of that fire, that a woman reflects the leadership of a man.
Yeah.
And again, this isn't positional, like one's higher or the other. When a man is passionate about God and leading his family well.
Nothing sexier than that.
Yeah.
So true.
Right.
So true.
So typically what we see in dating is the man is an initiator. He's like pursuing her, chasing after her. He's initiating. Then they get married. And what happens is there's a shift that takes place. Whether it's just through routines, he stops initiating date nights. There's less of that kind of energy, and that fire dies down. But nature abhors a vacuum, and you gotta step up to the plate. And usually you'll see a woman step up to the plate. So she's the one that's saying, "Hey, let's go to this marriage conference. Let's go on the date nights." But
Mm,
when she's leader, it's different. It's a
She's
different feeling.
she's leading out of resentment because what she really wants is the husband that she fell in love with. She wants
Yeah.
the real man of
wow.
God who is saying, "I am going to lead my family and I'm going to lead my spouse and in a
Mhm.
godly, healthy, masculine energy way, not like a toxic, right? Not
Yeah.
you submit
Yeah.
to me and you're nothing. No, like that, none of that, right? That doesn't fly. I mean, Casey married a very strong-willed Enneagram 8 woman,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
he knows.
Yes, I know.
Love
I'm a hard
that.
one to lead, but you know what? I want him to lead. I want him to lead and I want to, and so I think that this picture is really should be really helpful for people listening and just as a reminder that even that's how when it's in order of how God intended it to be, it's really cool
Mhm.
and beautiful and there's a
Yeah.
lot of rewards to that.
Yeah.
I love that you guys talked about it's how we're wired. Whole idea of it's how we're wired is so true. Like it's how God designed us. It's in our nature to be these ways. And it makes me, gosh, as you're even describing everything, I'm like, question, question, question. I'm like, I might need a session after this. I don't know. But I'm just so curious because, gosh, Megan, you and I are very similar. I'm a 7 wing 8, and
Oh,
I channel that 8 a lot. You're
Oh,
that's
that's
seven wing
me.
8.
Casey.
Yeah. Oh,
You
I'm a
both?
7 wing 8. Yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
And I'm
Okay.
an
I'm
eight.
ready to have fun.
Yep.
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 But we could like raise our hand and make sure something's correct in the world, you know?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Of
So I'm
course.
an 8 with a wing 7. We say it's like one of
Oh
the
my
only things we have in
gosh.
common because we don't have
Wow.
like our love languages are
Yeah.
complete opposites. I'm telling you, Cece. So his is words of affirmation. Words
Okay.
of affirmation's my lowest and it's a 0. I was like, oh God, you have such a funny sense of humor. Words mean nothing to me. Isn't that crazy? How,
Wait.
like, yeah. So it's just,
Okay, that is the opposites attract thing is so real. That's me and
yeah,
Jonathan. That's my top and his last. Like he doesn't need
yep,
any words of encouragement. I'm like,
there you
I
go.
need your words. I need your words.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we are drawn to people that are different than us. Most of the
Right.
time, our spouse is more different than us than alike. And I think that first off, that's normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it becomes the rub when you get married. You find it enduring and attractive when you're dating. And then you just kind of get annoyed, like, well, why just don't you do it the way I do it? Because my way is the right way. And you realize, though, that is what humbles us. That is what keeps us on our knees in prayer. That is what
Mm,
reminds us that we are not the best person walking around this planet, that
yeah.
we always have room to grow, and that people see and do life differently than us. And that was
Yeah.
God's intent. Otherwise, he would have made just little clones. He specifically did not do that.
Yet, you know what's funny,
Mm.
Megan? And I don't know if your listeners can't see, but Megan got dressed and was up before I came home. And then I got my shirt on. We show up, we got the same color shirt on.
Matching.
They're in sync, y'all. They are dialed. I cannot believe you both are like 8, 7, 7, 8. That's wild to me. I'm like, oh
What's your
my
husband?
gosh.
Now I'm curious. What is
He's
he?
a 3, and I
We
have
love
best friends,
threes.
right? And they're threes. My best friends are like threes, and
Yep.
together we're 10. It just makes sense. We complete each other, you know?
Oh, I love that. We love
So
threes. We have a lot of threes. Is that like a 7 and an 8 thing? We
I
like
think
threes,
so. We
achievers.
like
Yeah, we like
Yeah.
like
threes on our team.
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
get it done. You know, we got
They
the
Yeah, they do.
idea.
do. They
Oh, it's
They
do,
funny.
bring it to
right?
the finish line.
I love them. Yes.
Just
That's so funny.
That's
set the
so
goal and they're like,
good.
got it. I'm
Yep.
on it.
Yep, exactly. But I'm curious though, because you talked a lot about like having a strong woman by your side, and I
Mm.
absolutely resonate with that. I mean, so many of my friends were giving kudos to Jonathan during our engagement and whatnot because they know that I am a lot in the sense of like I have always been so independent since my parents divorced in 8th grade. I've literally like said, okay, it's on me. And I've taken so much of that into every area of my life, especially career and success and wanting to have a very successful life. We grew up in, my parents grew up in the Philippines. I'm first generation.
Wow.
American, and so they came when they were 18 with a couple $100 and that's it, you know. And so the
Wow.
life that I've been afforded, it feels almost like a challenge to do everything contrary to what they were given, you know. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that I feel like has been embedded within me to kind of channel this strength and like I can do it. But what I've
Mm.
been learning in relationship with Jonathan since we've been dating is like, Lord, show me what it looks like to die to myself. So I'm just so curious from your guys' professional perspective, what does it look like? Because I know there's a lot of strong girlies on this podcast, especially because I
I love
speak
that.
so much, right? Like we want to raise up strong women, right? But
Yes.
what does
We
it
have yeah.
also look like to allow that man to lead? What does that look like?
Well, let me say this because I'll speak for Casey because he's a really great example of this. And also,
Yeah.
Aw.
we have a 16-year-old daughter who is pretty rad too. And we've raised a very confident leader. I'm like, oh, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree with her.
That's
Um,
amazing.
what I love about Casey is that he knows my giftings.
Mm,
He knows that I have the gift of discernment. And that when God speaks to me and God guides me, he's like, I better listen because Megan knows what she's talking about. And,
mm,
and no, but it's like this thing where he lets me lead when I want to lead in certain areas. But then he also is there to be like, hey, by the way, though, you don't always have to be the lead. Like we're a team and we're a partnership, and let me handle this part. So I love
mm.
that. Like we're both leaders, right? So I let him lead in certain ways and he lets me lead in certain ways. And he's not intimidated. See,
Oh yeah.
insecure
This is
men
good.
who are not right with
Identify
God.
it.
Yep.
Identify
They're
it.
not right with God. They don't know their own strengths. It kills them to watch their wife soar
Mm.
in
Mm,
business, in parenting, in any area.
Yeah.
And that
yeah.
right there, it's because that's hurting his ego. That has
Mhm.
nothing to do with her. Because there are
Mm,
so many women in scriptures that were leaders, that
yeah.
were independent,
Oh
that
yeah.
were forced to
Yeah.
be independent, that really had to lean on God with all their faith. No men on earth, right? And so, why would that be any different today? There's many
So
books named
good.
after women, right? So I'm like,
As
Right.
Megan says, confidence is the new sexy.
yeah.
Come
And so,
on.
right. And so I'm similar to you. I think for anyone listening, if you were raised in a divorced home, that's actually a really common thing. Same as you. I felt I was forced into being a very independent person. I
Mm.
couldn't rely on my parents, they were messy.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even think that I would really get married that young because I got married pretty young. I think that was God showing me, hey, I want you to learn to die to self. I want you to actually
Mm,
have a partner that you can lean on. And it's interesting because it is this like, I want him to let me lead, but I don't want him to lead me too much. Like I'm going to tell you again, I haven't arrived at it, but I do think finding a
yeah.
confident man who allows you to lead and shine and does not take away from that and supports you and loves you and teaches your children, wow, look at mom, look at the giftings that God's given her, because that leadership ability that
Mm,
you have, that's from God.
Yeah.
Was
right.
it part of the
Yep.
divorce? Sure. But that
Yeah.
was from God. Like, let's
So
use your
true.
giftings.
Okay.
So
And
true.
let me counter that by saying I ignore Megan's discernment at my own peril. Like there's times where I've kind of I've taken the lead in an unhealthy way, which is this is the way we're gonna go. Not let's talk about because we're a team. So
Mm,
what direction are we gonna go?
Yeah.
I'm usually like, this is the way I want to go. That's not leadership. That's just
Being demanding,
sit
bossy.
down, get in the back seat, shut up. I'm gonna drive.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not engaging. And when I've acted that way, it's not led to healthy results. I appreciate the compliment, but I will say I feel like there's a life lesson that I'm learning as well, and that is, Casey, as you lead, it doesn't mean you ignore Megan.
Mm.
You
Mm,
ignore her thoughts, her concerns, and when we coach couples, it's like, her concerns need to be my concerns. The
yeah.
dreams that Megan have, I need to adopt them as my dreams because I want her to accomplish those dreams just as much as she wants me to accomplish my dreams.
Come
Right. And
on.
so there is kind of a taking on each other's like this is what you want.
Mhm.
Let's figure out what we want to do together.
Yeah. A good
So,
leader, a
Right.
good leader asks their
yeah.
teammate. You know,
Yeah.
a good leader checks in, and I think that's something that we've learned, and I would encourage you and Jonathan to do is always check in with each other. Just,
Yeah.
like, hey, I really feel strongly about this, but I want to check in with you because we're together in this at the end of the
Right.
day, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
I just want to go back because I don't know why I have to feel so apologetic or disclaimers like when I say a woman is a responder. I that doesn't mean you just sit there waiting. Like
Yeah.
there's an active participation. I just want to make sure that
We
I don't know that
that
you
poor
just
Stacey doesn't get a bunch of emails from
yeah.
her
I'm like
her listeners.
Oh
I'm
no.
already feeling like hot. Like gosh, somebody's gonna take that the wrong way. They're not gonna hear the heart behind of like what it means to move as a team.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
No, that's so beautifully said because I think that that team idea, I feel like is a newer thing, if I can say. Like my parents, when I look at, how we were brought up and I look at my aunts and uncles who are all in their 50s and 60s. My mom is turning 60 this year and she's the youngest of 11. So think all the generations above of how they did things. I know, insane.
Wow.
Huge
11
family
kids. I can't imagine.
all out of my grandma's hoo-hoo, and she did it herself.
oh my
And
god.
I'm like, she popped out all 11, and she lived to 98 years old.
Good for her.
So my genes, I don't know. We got something
Yeah.
cooking. But anyhow, I look at how my parents loved each other and I saw and can now see at least, right? Hindsight's always 2020, but that team component was never always there. And I don't even know if it was there in a lot of ways. And I think that I could ask my mom and she'd probably say the same, but um you guys shared on your Instagram two mistakes couples make that cause them to grow apart. I would love for you to share what are those common two mistakes and what can we do about it? How can we be on the preventative side of that? Being a team is one, but my goodness, I would love to just dive in more into that.
It's so interesting, by the way, because when I did that Instagram live, I wasn't really feeling that great. I was pretty tired, and the Holy Spirit guided me. So I just think that I
Come
want to say that
on.
because it wasn't me in that live, right? Like I look at
Yeah.
that and I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, God, you had something there. And it really, I don't want to say went viral because it didn't really go viral, but it had really great engagement, which makes me happy because I'm doing it for other people. And that
Yes.
showed me that there was a big desire for people to realize, well, I don't want to make mistakes. I mean, of course, I don't want to make mistakes in my relationship. So,
Right.
the first one I talked about was that couples don't stop and check in with each other. A
Mm.
lot of people, and maybe your parents did this, I know my parents did, kind of go on autopilot
Oh
and they
yeah.
never like lift their head up and like look to the left and look to
Mm.
the right and go, like, is this working? Like, gosh, when's the last time we went on a date night? Gosh, when's the last time we laughed together?
Mm.
When's the last time we just turned off the TV at night and like played a board game? I mean, if more couples just stopped and asked those kinds of questions and checked in versus, well, we're just in this rough season and it'll get better. And well, we're busying ourselves, but at least we're going to church and we've got this.
Yeah.
It's like they're really minimizing actually the problems. Every couple's got problems. Every couple's got issues. But if you just picked your head up and had a regular rhythm, of saying, are we good? And we always tell it, we tell couples or anybody, by the way, you can use this as a single. We call it an emotional check-in. Every
Mm.
week, ask yourself, what's working in my life? What's not working in my life? And what needs to change?
That's
You
so
can do
good.
that in your job, your career. You
So
can do
true.
that in a friendship you're struggling with. You could do that with your family members. You could do that with your health. Like, oh, I've been eating
So
too many sweets
true.
lately, or whatever. You could be doing that with what you consume. I loved your episode on social media. That was really convicting. But it's like your feed is a reflection of a lot of things, right? But like you can
Right.
do that and go, what's working, what's not working, and what needs to change. And if more couples, dating couples, engaged couples, married couples did that, they wouldn't get to the place where Casey and I got. They wouldn't get to the average couple waits 6 years to get help for their relationship. That's way too
Wow.
long. We have to fix this.
Wow.
And we have to be able to check in.
Yeah. Babe, I think underpinning that checking in, there is a thing of curiosity,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
We need to be we have an attitude of curiosity. I think curiosity is easy when we're dating because we talked about mystery. We talked about, oh, I like this person. I want to get to know them. But I think once we get married, and all the married people out there listening, don't stop. Wait,
Mm.
don't stop getting curious.
Well, they
Hold on.
don't stop to get curious.
Yeah, don't stop getting curious. I don't know
Yeah.
if that.
Well, that's a
but-
tagline. Don't stop getting curious. That could be a good
Yeah.
hashtag. Don't stop
Boom. There
getting
you go.
curious.
because y- that drives this impulse for couples to continue asking great questions and getting to know them. I think the other mistake is that couples, you kind of said autopilot, and I like that. I think a lot of couples are just winging it in their relationship.
Yep.
They
Mm.
have no plan, goal, or, when you think about a team, our daughter plays water polo, and they're starting their season coming up here in like the next 2 months. And imagine the coach is going, all right, guys, I don't really care where we finish in the season. Just go out there, have fun, throw the ball a couple times. Hopefully you score. No, I mean, he's like, all right, ladies, we want to finish the top of our division. We're going to work hard. We're going to practice hard. We're going to be disciplined.
Here's our game schedule. Here's our practice
Like we have a
schedule.
plan in place.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, you're an entrepreneur yourself, CC. Like,
Yeah.
you got goals, you got plans. I mean, imagine anybody running a business where they just don't share their goals with their employees. It just be
Crazy.
chaos.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean,
that's what a lot of couples do.
at the end of your life, who cares what kind of business you're in? What
Mhm.
matters is the family, our connections, and the relationships we have. And yet, we have no plan, no goal, no intentionality behind how we operate in our relationships. So I wish people would be more. The mistake that people have is just they don't set a goal, or like, let's talk about where we want to be in the next 40 years. And then how do we back into that? Because if I want to be married when I'm after 50 years of being with Megan, I still want to be married.
Yeah.
There's choices I have to make this month
Yep.
to make sure that I make that goal.
Come on.
But if I don't set that goal, then I'm aimless.
Yeah.
And people do really well with direction. And that's, of course, at Marriage365, we're very action oriented because, again, when we were building our own marriage, I was like, okay, this is great. We can talk about feelings. That's part of it. But like, tell me how to fix it. Maybe that's the Enneagram 8 in me.
That's it. I'm
me how to
like,
fix it,
girl,
right?
that's where my head goes
Yep.
every day.
Tell me how to fix it. I'm direct.
Yes.
Just let me know. And let's fix this and let's get on track. Cause like, and I was even thinking about if someone was struggling listening, finding joy in their life, right? Like,
yeah.
and my thing would be get curious as to why. There's no wrong
So
answer, but that's where
good.
I would tell someone to start. Is if
Curiosity.
just get curious with yourself. Gosh, why? I want to find joy. I'm listening to this podcast. I'm
Mm.
trying to talk. I'm praying. I'm asking God for it. Why don't I have joy? Get curious. And the book of Proverbs is all about crying out for wisdom and
Preach.
understanding.
That's right.
And we always say
Come
that's like the
on.
book of relationships right there.
Yeah.
And that right there will spark that curiosity.
That is such a profound question to ask, and one angle that I have not seen or looked at joy yet, but get curious as to why you're searching for that. That's
Yeah,
such
there
a
is a
beautiful
reason.
question, right?
And there's a reason, and not to allow shame or embarrassment, or I'd
Yeah.
say pride or ego,
Right.
right, to get in the way, or even like complacing, or what is it?
Complacency.
Yeah, like don't be okay with that. Like get curious to go, like,
Mm.
I'm going to find the answer. God's going to show it to me. I'm going to figure it out.
Come
I'm going to
on.
hear about it in a podcast. God's going to speak to you. God speaks to us all the time. It's
Yeah.
just whether or not
We're
we're
listening.
listening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're being curious means you've got to be open.
So true. So true. Casey, everything that you were sharing too, it reminds me of the several quotes, but two that come to mind is when you plan, if you don't have a, wait, I'm butchering it. When you plan to fail, when you fail to plan,
Yes.
you plan to fail.
You
Lord,
got
bring
it.
it to
Yep.
me.
You
And
got
then
it.
also just the whole idea that hope is not a strategy. Like I
No.
think a lot of people get married, they say I do, and they hope that they will have a fruitful, good marriage. It's just not a plan. And I love that you guys are so action oriented because it's something that I hope I die on the hill on. Like I just want to continue to equip people. Like it's one thing to say, "Oh, go out and have a good marriage and find resources. It's another to make sure that those resources are actionable things that you can do today, tomorrow,
Yes.
next
So,
week.
so wait, okay. So we have 5 family values.
Okay,
One
I
of
was
them,
just gonna ask you to share like
hey,
some of your personal ones.
one of them, well, we debated between joy and content, but we
Okay.
feel like they go together, by the way, a lot of times.
Yeah,
Okay. At least for us, for our
totally.
family. And
Absolutely.
like the example is like when we are talking with our 2 teenagers and we're like, okay, we're like having them recite our family values. We actually put an action to it. Like, so how are you going to find joy this week then? Like, or how are you going to choose joy this week?
Mm,
Not just we're going to
yeah.
talk about family values and that sounds all great. Like, and then like one of ours is like honesty. Like we
Mm.
value honesty as
Truthfulness.
truthfulness is technically what we call it. But we're like, how in this week can we all be very truthful? Now that's even like being truthful with yourself. Like, have you been telling yourself a lie? But I
Yeah.
I love that it's like joy in action,
Yes.
and that's
Yeah.
so important, as all of us are Enneagram 8s in one form or
Yes.
whether you're a wing or not. We're like all
Yeah.
about the action,
Well, okay, so
Totally.
but when I think about how people are, the mass majority of people are just winging it, hope as a strategy.
Mhm.
I do feel like you have to give yourself a little grace. Like, we are all being raised in modern America. There's a soup that we're all swimming in.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
soup that we've been fed are all the rom-coms, The Bachelor. Like, there is a
So true.
story that is being told to us through Hollywood that within an hour and a half, this couple's gonna struggle. They're gonna try to like accomplish something, then they struggle, and then they find their way out. And at the very end, they lived happily ever after.
So true.
But there's no like unpacking, like, what strategies did they play. They didn't show them, sitting there and like doing some of the tools that we teach at Marriage 365. So we kind of, it's subtle, but it sets us up for this assumption like, well, they always win at the end, or by just kind of going after it. I don't even know what that means, but let's just try that.
Yeah.
There's
Mm.
no sense of like, what is working on your relationship actually look like, right?
That's good.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't want anyone to ever listen and feel judged because we went into marriage with no plan. We went in with no
Right.
strategy. We didn't know that, right? Like that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I
Not a
think
judgy statement.
no, I'm saying I probably came across as a judger earlier. Something I'm working on as an Enneagram 8. I could be a little bit more
Same.
gentle with my words and what I say and my directedness. But I think that I would never. I agree. Give yourself grace, and tomorrow's a new fresh start. Thank you,
Right.
Jesus. And I think too,
Yeah.
just knowing that everything in marriage, for the most part, like 90% of marriage tools that work also can apply to singles. So it's the
Mm.
same with if you're wanting to have a specific goal for a career, you have to have a plan.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
if you want to lose weight, you have to have a plan. You can't be like, just
Yeah.
like lose weight. Like, no, I mean, and that's kind of the thing that the principles that work for marriage, it's really neat. They work in parenting, they work in career, they work in friendships. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
I love that you shared that because you know what? I think the girl that's listening right now is thinking about that. Well, how does that
Mm.
apply to me? And really, what I think, friend who's listening, is that whole idea that they're sharing. Like all of the things that you're hoping in a marriage, you can turn around and ask yourself, well, am I showing up as that person right now? Am I doing the work right now? And by the way, this looks like, am I showing up as that person to your mom? Am I showing up to as that person to your siblings? How about your friends? I think so often I live in Nashville and we are living downtown and we're in our 20s, and so there's so many other singles that we're meeting, and there's a lot of singles who are in their 30s and late 20s. And so I think what I'm even seeing, if I'm on the outside looking in, is just a lot of people who are longing for this thing. And I think a lot of people, like Casey, you were mentioning, have this idea in their head of like, okay, well, I'm just looking for that like I don't know. It's almost like this perfect human being,
Yeah.
but that just doesn't exist, right?
No,
And
it does
so,
not.
man, I love that you both talked about that because there are things that we can do today to work on ourselves, but then we can also give ourselves grace and readjust our expectations a bit and not
Absolutely.
allow the media to shape exactly what we're looking for and allow
Mhm.
God to highlight who we're looking for, you know?
100%.
That's so good. Well, you guys have a new book coming out, and I need you to talk about it. It's 365 Connecting Questions for Couples. Jonathan and I need this 100%. Oh, there it is, right there if you're watching. Will you guys give us a little teaser on what people can expect? And I also love asking authors this on the show, but will you give us a little fun fact too in the process of creating it, something that nobody would know, but you're willing
Yeah.
to share
Ooh,
it?
I like that.
Well, science has shown that the number one way to build emotional closeness, safety, connection, intimacy is by asking open-ended questions. And if
Mm.
you think about it, this is exactly what you did on your first date is you were curious and intentional and you started asking great questions. And I think curiosity creates that desire and that like creativity for us to say, like, I'm going to ask them about their dreams and their hopes and their desires and their background and their childhood. And what do they want to do? Where are they going? And I want to know everything about you. I'm so energized by that. And what
Mm.
happens is as we get further along the road in a relationship, we kind of stop getting curious. We stop asking
Mm.
great questions.
And
And
it,
so
and we
couples,
don't mean to. The
no,
desire's there, but we either like we've kind of lost the creativity. We can't come up with the questions, which is
Yeah.
why we wrote the book. And
There
by
you
the
go.
way, quiz time. Who asked the most questions in scripture?
ooh.
Jesus.
Jesus did.
Jesus
That is
asked, I
It's
want,
like
I,
Sunday
beautiful.
school. Jesus is always the right answer.
yeah, yeah. I think I need to do the math, but someone said it was 180 questions.
Yeah,
It was a
that's
lot.
right.
And he asked the most
Wow.
questions. So, he
Who do
took
you think I am?
yeah, yeah. He often was asked a question and came back with a question.
Yeah.
But really, this
True.
is an opportunity not just for married couples. This is actually for dating, seriously dating and engaged couples as well, to ask a question a day. There's literally 365 questions. There's a bonus section on faith and spirituality. There's a bonus section on parenting, topics like boundaries, mental health, childhood, roles and responsibilities. But the really neat story, CC, behind this is that we actually self-published this book in 2018.
No
And
way.
yes, and we sold on our own over 100,000 copies.
Hmm.
What in the world? Okay, this is
I
not
know.
new.
I know. And so uh, this publishing house called Penguin Random House,
It's small indie publisher.
small little,
Oh
no,
my
they
gosh.
reached out to us the beginning of 2024 and they said, "We've heard about your book. We want it. We love it. Will you update and revise it?" And we did. And so that's what we did. And so it is like basically it
Wow.
feels like a brand new book. And it comes out December 3rd, 2024. And you can pre-order it now on Amazon. Just look up like Connecting Questions or Marriage365, whatnot. And we will give and anyone who purchases it $348 worth of free bonus gifts. And I don't know about you, but I'm like one of those like bonus gift girls. I'm like,
Oh,
wait, do I
any
get free stuff with
bonus.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, a free pen? Sign
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
up. You know?
Sign me up. A stress ball?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say
That's
what's really cool about this
amazing.
book is it's not a book about marriage. Funny enough, we are writing our second book right now, and it will be more content
Exciting.
driven.
With
But
Penguin Random House. Yes.
this is a book for any relationship, dating, engaged, or even married, because really we're talking about if you are coupling up and becoming a team with someone, right? Team
Mm.
Caston over here.
Come
That's our
on.
rally cry.
That's our rally cry.
We
Team Caston,
we
we
high
got this.
five.
Good
Come
times, bad times.
on.
Um, if someone's looking to become a teammate with somebody, these are questions you want to ask to just understand them better, get to know them better. And I want to just say this, something about confidence. We said confidence is a new sexy. In order to become more confident, right? Confidence is about trusting oneself.
Hmm.
But how can you trust yourself if you never check in with yourself? If you don't ask yourself really good, I'd even say penetrating questions that get into the heart of who you are, your core desires and motivations, and even sharing that with your partner, you can't build on confidence. And so this book is like that tool to create more confidence in your life.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure a handful of those questions, like you said, you can take outside of just your relationship, which will be so cool and such an equipping tool, which we are all clearly fans of. So thank you for putting the work into that. Thank you for your guys' platform and everything that you're doing. I know that you're impacting, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that there's someone who's listening right now who's like, dang, I didn't know that I needed to hear this, but thank you. And so for that, I say thank you as well. There's a question that I ask every single guest on That's Joy, and it is, what does joy mean to you? So I'll let you both answer.
I'll go first. I love this question, by the way. I think for me, when I'm sitting down with a couple in crisis and they have lost all hope, they're even struggling in their relationship with God. Like, God, have you abandoned me? Have you left me? Have you forgotten about my marriage, my kids? And I'm able to use the giftings God's given me to put that hope back into the relationship, heal those wounds, get them back on track emotionally, mentally, and of course, spiritually. And there is no longer going to be kids that have to be raised in a broken home.
Yeah.
That is joy on a whole other level, because who created marriage? God did.
Yeah.
And I know that that makes him happy, which makes me happy.
I just got chills. That was so good.
How am I supposed to follow that?
Casey would probably say sex.
I should have gone first. Yeah.
So, one word, sex.
Sex.
Oh my gosh.
Say that because you know what? God also created sex. Just saying.
True. So
joy
true.
there.
That's another
There should be
episode.
Yeah.
man.
Oh, we will come back and talk about that topic
Literally.
as much as you want us to. Yes.
The girlies are like, wait, I want to hear.
Yes. Yes. Or we could just do a girls one.
Oh, that could be
You could
fun.
ask your listeners questions they can ask me, and I'm happy to answer. Yeah. 'Cause
Okay,
we have
wait.
videos. We have videos in our app that are like about like female arousal and things like that. Like kind of like the birds and the bees talk your mom should have given you, but never did.
That's the episode title right there.
There you go. I love it. I'm all for it.
Oh, we just cut you off, Casey.
How do you, I
What
know,
does
poor
joy
Casey.
mean
How do you
to
follow up after that, babe? I'm so sorry.
Oh man, everybody's gonna be like, and skip. Wow. Okay, so I think for me with joy, like I think about the times where I find myself most joyful, like when I surf, when I'm in the ocean, I'm experiencing God's creation. I think there's, for me, and I love what you just said, because that's like the right answer. But joy for me is the thrill of experiencing childlike faith where I don't have to worry. I am completely free. And there is an emotional component to it. The thrill of just like I get to play with no fear, anxiety, worry. That there's nothing going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm invincible.
Yeah.
I'm invincible. And I think that there are times in my life where I've driven, I'm like, I am literally invincible. God has called me. He has given me his authority. He has called us to a very unique calling. And he's given us authority to bind the enemy, to release people, to experience freedom and joy in others as they experience a restored relationship, maybe after an affair or after years of anger and resentment. And there's just a sense of levity that we tend to carry around. Like, I'm concerned about my finances, the politics, I'm concerned about crime. I'm concerned about, are my kids going to make it? That probably robs us of joy. And God's asking us, hey, my burden is light. These are all my concerns. You don't need to worry about that, because those aren't even your kids, by the way. Those are my kids.
Yeah.
You know what? You don't have to worry about money, because I'm going to provide. And guess what? I let you keep 90% of my money that I give to you. You're not the provider, right? If you walk through life like that, you would experience joy and levity like nothing.
Yeah.
could rain on your parade? Nothing.
That's
So
such an Enneagram
true.
7.
That was
It is
beautiful.
totally,
That
yeah.
was the most optimistic response. But it's so true. And honestly, I
He's like,
saw a
"Gotcha."
quote today on Instagram that said, everything that I've held, I've lost. Everything that God held, I still have. And I think that's so
Ooh,
profound.
that's
It's
good.
it's
Mic
what you
drop.
just shared. It's
Yeah.
literally that, it's that surrender, and it's not circumstantial. It's that peace. And so I love both of your guys' answers. By the way, have not heard either of them. So that is also
Oh,
so cool to hear too,
hey.
which is awesome. How in the world can we show up for you guys? I know everyone's like, wait, Cece, you didn't share their Instagram yet. Where do I see these reels? Where can I find more information? Will you just share where we can connect with you guys? And I know you shared the book, but share it again where people can grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for our book, go to marriage365books.com. So it's pretty easy to remember. But if you just search up Marriage365, that's our handle on Instagram, Facebook, and then our website's marriage365.com. And we have so many resources for so many people. And it's just really cool to meet people like you who also share of just using our gifts that God's given us to love people where they're at. And in ours, it just happens to be marriage and relationships.
And
So good.
we have a vision to see this book in the hands of as many couples as possible because, honestly, this book has nothing to do with you and me. I'm
Yeah.
looking at Megan.
Yeah.
Because it's the power is when a couple uses it and
Mhm.
finds connection that they start to restore their own marriage. And God has called us in a very specific way to be lights, bright, shining stars in the midst of a dark and perverse generation. That is the impulse behind Marriage 365. It's not necessarily a finger quotes Christian marriage ministry as much as it is God's impulse to say, I love marriage because I created it. And whether you believe in me or not, I want to see you thrive. I want to
Yeah.
see you successful. That is the impulse of God. And Megan and I have taken this unique calling to
Yeah.
bring that message into people that may some go to church, some don't go to church, some
Yeah.
don't want to go to church,
Mm.
but they still are getting God's the
Yeah.
kingdom truth, like common grace.
Yeah.
That that is what we preach at Marriage 365. So
You guys are walking and living that out, and it is so beautiful. And I love that your mission is to get this in the hands of many, especially now. And the timing of the release of the book, December 4th, I feel like that is perfect because for all of the people who are listening, where you're single and you're like, I don't need it yet. You probably know someone who just got engaged or
Yeah.
is going to get engaged or just got married, and you want to get them a gift for Christmas. Hello, this is perfect. So
Yes.
go
Yes.
ahead and do that. You guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for your time. I always say time's our greatest gift. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving an ounce of yours to not only me, you poured into me immensely tonight, but also to our community who I know is so thankful for your words.
thank you, Cece.
Thank you so much. And thanks for everyone for listening.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. There was so much to love about that episode. I mean, how much do y'all love Casey and Megan? I told you, right? Gosh, I just want to continue to follow them on social and honestly utilize all that they're putting out, all the valuable content that they're putting out as a resource. If you're single, man, grab their book now and put it in your back pocket and sift through it and gift it to a friend who just got engaged. And there's just a lot of value in everything that they were sharing. Something that I really loved was how similar we both were to each other. Especially Megan and I feel like her and I were friends way far before this recording. Just relating on several different areas when our parents divorced and how we navigate and think about life and how we're both basically the same Enneagram, even though I'm a wing and she's an 8. You get what I mean. There was just a lot of love in this episode, and I'm sure that you have things that are ringing in your head where you're thinking in your mind, man, I wish they would talk more about that. I'm so curious. Maybe we were talking about the differences between males and females, and you're like, wait, I have a certain question. Will you text me what those things are? I want to know what they are. You can shoot me a text at 615-813-4813, and let's talk about it. Let's see if we can bring them on when that second book releases, or even sooner potentially. But I always love hearing what your favorite part of the episode was. Like we shared, if you're not following them yet, please go do that after this is over. And if you want to follow me, you can do that too. I'm at CCALBONERO on Instagram and on TikTok, and you can follow That's Joy the Podcast on both of those as well. If you are not subscribed yet, or have not left a rating or review for That's Joy, or my goodness, there's probably a handful of you who are listening to That's Joy for the very first time. It'd mean the world if you jumped over to Apple. It'll take 2 minutes or less to just write a quick review, drop a 5 stars. It does wonders for podcasters. So don't just do it for me, but do it for any podcast that you love. And then you can hop over to Spotify and drop a 5 stars there too. Friends, I can't thank you enough for doing that. I'll never leave a That's Joy episode without saying, if you have even the smallest desire to meet the creator of the universe, or if you've already been saved but you're not really free, I want to invite you to sit at the table of plenty with me and so many others. I'm telling you, there's abundance here. There is overflow here, and there's so much joy here. I'm here to tell you that God is for you. All you have to do is invite him into your heart right now. He's waiting for you. He wants to meet with you. And friend, I'm so proud of you. If you just made this decision, I'd love to know you. Shoot me a text, that number in the show notes, so I could pray for you. I love you. God loves you. I know Marriage365 loves you too. Thank you so, so much for being here.